Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for November the 12th. Today we are reading together in Second Chronicles chapter 22, which is going to tell us about Judah's king Ahaziah. Remember, we read about him yesterday, and he was mentioned as Jehoahaz within that text. Here he has a different name, which is Ahaziah, and he is the son of the awful king Jehoram. So maybe we're hoping that Jehoram was just a really bad feeling between two good kings. Jehoshaphat, his father, was a great king. Jehoram, we know, was terrible. Maybe Ahaziah is going to be better, and it's just a unfortunate hiccup there with Jehoram. And yet we're going to figure out that's not the case at all. So let's read together here in Second Chronicles chapter 22, beginning in verse number 1. Second Chronicles 22, verse number 1. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, referring to Jehoram, his youngest son, Jehoram's youngest son, king in his place, because the troops that had come with the Arabs to the camp had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, became king of Judah. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah, granddaughter of Omri, which that in itself, not good. If we remember our read through Kings, Omri, not good. Athaliah, she's probably going to get an idea, probably not good as well. We walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother gave him evil advice. Again, not surprising considering what family she belonged to. So he did what was evil in Yahweh's sight, like the house of Ahab, for they were his advisors after the death of his father, to his destruction. He also followed their advice and went with Joram, son of Israel's king Ahab. Remember, there are some similar names, if not exact names, being shared between various kings of Israel and Judah, which is super confusing, but just know this is the Joram of the northern tribes of Israel. So he went with Joram, son of Israel's king Ahab, to fight against King Hazael of Aram in Ramoth Gilead. The Arameans wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds they inflicted on him at Ramoth Gilead when he fought against King Hazael of Aram. Then Judah's king Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, went down to Jezreel to visit Joram, son of Ahab, since Joram was ill. Ahaziah's downfall came from God when he went to Joram. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out with Joram to meet Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom Yahweh had appointed to destroy the house of Ahab. So when Jehu executed judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the rulers of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers who were serving Ahaziah, and he killed them. Then Jehu looked to Ahaziah, and Jehu's soldiers captured him. He was hiding in Samaria. So they brought Ahaziah to Jehu, and they killed him. The soldiers buried him, for they said, he is the grandson of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahweh with all his heart. So no one from the house of Ahaziah had strength to rule the kingdom. When Athaliah, Ahaziah's mother, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to annihilate all the royal heirs of the house of Judah. Jehoshabeath, the king's daughter, rescued Joash, son of Ahaziah, from the king's sons who were being killed, and put him and the one who nursed him in a bedroom. Now Jehoshabeath was the daughter of King Jehoram, and his wife, and the wife of the priest Jehoiada. Since she was Ahaziah's sister, she hid Joash from Athaliah so that she did not kill him. He was hiding with them in God's temple for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. And that is Second Chronicles chapter 22. Again, any hope that we might have had for Ahaziah / Jehoahaz to be a decent king, well, that goes right out the window pretty fast whenever we see that, number one, he's surrounded by evil people like Athaliah, who come from a long line of evil people like Omri and like Ahab. And he listened to her bad advice, not only hers, but also some advisors who had been the advisors of Ahab, it seems. And he followed that advice, and unsurprisingly, he began to make bad decisions, and he aligned himself with the evil kings of Israel, like Joram, the son of Ahab. And he and Joram, so Ahaziah of Judah and Joram of Israel, come together to make an alliance to go and fight against King Hazael of Ramoth Gilead, which is the exact same thing we see back in chapter 18, where Jehoshaphat and Ahab teamed up to go against Ramoth Gilead then. That didn't work out then. And unsurprising, this doesn't work out either. Fortunately, Ahaziah did not feel like learning from past mistakes of his fathers. So in this battle, Joram is wounded. He goes back to Jezreel to recover, and Ahaziah ends up going to Jezreel to visit with Joram as well. And once he gets there, God's judgment is going to come upon him. Remember, we read in 2 Kings 9 that God had chosen Jehu to be the next king in a new dynasty in Israel. Remember, the dynasties of the kings changed a few times in Israel, whereas they remained the same within Judah because that had to be the dynasty of David. Well, in Israel, that wasn't a thing. So dynasties changed from time to time, and it was time for Ahab's dynasty to eat dust. It was time for it to be destroyed, for his whole house to be destroyed, and God chose Jehu to be the one who would administer that judgment against the house of Ahab for their horrible wickedness. So Jehu not only executes judgment on Ahab, however, but his zeal ends up taking out Ahaziah and many of his sons and soldiers as well, which again was more than what God had told him to do. And what that led to then was almost the entire wiping out of the line of David. For once Jehu and those who were after him, after they were unwilling to take control, that created a authority vacuum that Athaliah stepped in and took control of. And what does she do? Well, she goes and she starts trying to take out all the heirs to the throne so that she can maintain her power. Well, what does that lead to? Well, that leads to a woman that we know as Jehosheba from 2 Kings. That leads to her having to step up to save the one son that was left, Joash. So she has to save this son of Ahaziah, so that he isn't killed, or else the whole line of David's done. Of course, here's God's providence in providing for David. Remember, we read yesterday about God's faithfulness to the line of David, even though Jehoram had been terrible. He was still faithful to him and did not destroy him because of the promise made to David of a continuing dynasty. Well, here is God providing through this woman to protect the dynasty of David and keeping Joash from being killed. But again, all this happens whenever people don't do what God wants them to do. Whenever people are unfaithful to Yahweh, whenever they're unfaithful to the covenant, whenever they don't follow instructions, whenever they go beyond what God says, all this trouble comes about. And yet here is God still. God is still in control, and he's making sure that his will is going to be accomplished regardless of the evil that is carried out by the men and women of this particular time period. There's a little faithfulness that remains, and we see that faithfulness here from this woman, Jehoshabeath. There you go, Jehoshabeath. She maintains the lineage of David through protecting this boy, and he ends up hiding in the temple for 6 years, and we know eventually becomes king at, I believe, the age of 9. That's what we're going to read about tomorrow in chapter 23. Hope that you will tune in for that. If you have any questions or comments about this text we've read today here in 2 Chronicles 22, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Looking forward to being with everybody here in a little bit for our Bible study at 10 a.m. and our worship assembly at 11. We're going to go back a little bit in the timeline of our Bible reading and look at the story of King Ahab and Jezebel and the vineyard of Naboth. I think there's a lot of really important lessons for us to learn from that text. We're going to read through it and learn some of those lessons, or at least be reminded of some of those lessons today. Hope to see it then. Again, have a great rest of your Sunday. May God bless you in all that you do, and hope that you'll join me again tomorrow as we read together through 2 Chronicles chapter 23. Take care, and God bless.